Ooh.
A new drum machine from Teenage Engineering.
Yeah,
It's
awesome.
super simple. Ben and I are constantly on the quest to find like a drum machine that we can understand and use because they're all so complicated. So I've gone through so many of them.
Yeah.
And invariably they last about 6 months in my studio and then just ditch them.
Quan Yeomans has been fronting Regurgitator since the 90s and has just released the first single from their upcoming album, Invader. The Mighty Gurg will be here in Newcastle for a gig at King Street Hotel on the 31st of May. Here's the chat that we had prior to the gig. So you've just released the first single from your 10th album called This Is Not a Pop Song. The album's called Invader. And on this song, you were collaborating with Peaches. So can you tell me a little bit about this collaboration and what it was like working with her?
Peaches is just like, she's been in our life for so long. I remember hearing her first record when we were recording, I think maybe our 5th or 4th even, in London with Andy Gill from the Gang of Four, RIP. But we heard that record just before going over and we played it to him. We're like, this is what we want to sound like. Because it was like the most amazing record we heard for ages and ages. Just so raw and just done on that one drum machine. And so, we've been fans since then. I don't even know what year that was. Possibly, it would have been 98, 99, something like that, 99 maybe. And then she came over to tour. And I think maybe Paul was helping her, our manager was helping her out at the time.
Yeah.
And organising some tours. And then she got up on stage with us at the Big Day Out and we played rock show with her.
Yeah.
And that was the first big kind of festival show she did in Australia. And we just had a ball and we've been friends ever since. And I visited Europe on a sabbatical year that I took. I think it was like an early midlife crisis or whatever. And I was driving around and I met her in Germany and we hung out for a little bit when she was living in Berlin. I think she's back in Berlin now. She moved to Paris briefly. But yeah, we've always had kind of like a loose but nice connection with her. And I was just looking for a really kind of inspiring female vocalist. And she, I asked her around and she was on my list and we were just asking around different people and she said, yeah, totally happy to see her. I saw her play at the Northcote Theatre recently as well.
Yeah, right.
And, oh, my God. Just blown away. Her voice just gets stronger and stronger. She's such a powerhouse. And I like the idea of working with older artists as well because, you can learn a lot from experience. And it's great to have younger artists around as well because, you get that different energy where younger artists are more likely to take risks and more likely to push themselves and are motivated to work hard. But older artists kind of have more experience. They know how to fail. They know what it means. They know how little it means in the end and they don't mind. So they take risks in different ways. So it's great to have that spread between the two. So I like to surround myself with those kind of people. And this is the first collaboration we've done, I think, on a record for a very long time, if ever.
Yeah.
And I think this record kind of required that. So that's why we reached out to a bunch of different people. And Peaches, that connection has always been with us and we've always respected her and loved her work. So that's
cool. So what do you think it was about this album that called for collaboration?
I don't know if it was this album in particular, but I feel like maybe you reach a point in your career where you just want to try something a little bit different and be more open. And I feel like me personally, I've reached that point. I've always been a bit of a control freak in the past and maybe been a little less open to it, but now I just felt like now was the time. This album has a particular vibe about it that we haven't had for a while. I feel it's focused in a sense, not in the way, maybe it's not a concept album as such, but it's definitely got a theme to it and hence the title, and it has a drive behind it. So yeah, maybe that is the reason why I wanted to work with others as well.
Yeah. Can you tell me about the inspiration behind the title and some of those more prominent themes throughout the album?
I mean, basically it's just a massive anti-colonialist kind of fuck you to myself and to the society we live in. It's a mess. Last year was dreadful, obviously, for obvious reasons. And, I think the band members as individuals have always felt this, but it felt like it was time to really step up as an entity, as a group, as a band, as a team, and to say, look, we are allies, and now is the time to really make a voice heard from allies and working with Indigenous artists and Indigenous voices, and using us as a platform and giving them an opportunity to share the truth telling that needs to happen in this country to make a difference that is long overdue, obviously. So yeah, that's the reason why it has the title, and it's about ownership of that and understanding that. And there's been a lot of Indigenous thinking books that I've read over the last couple of years that's really have inspired me. The one in particular that really moved me a lot was Sand Talk by Tyson Yunkaporta, which I thought was it was a total mindfuck for me. I had to read it twice just to make sense of it. And it really pushed all the right buttons in me. And I reached out to him, and he was really gracious to respond, and really gracious to give me a poem after he's a kind of guy, so you don't get a lot out of him on the email. He's obviously very busy. He's a lecturer and a head of a Indigenous think tank at Deakin University, and a really great guy. And I just love how he's a larrikin. He uses his own language the way he wants to. He's an outsider. He's gone through a tough time, like every Indigenous person in this country. But the way that he's assembled his career and his life and his thoughts is really amazing to me, and I'd never read anything quite like it, or the way it's constructed as well is brilliant. Both of his books, his Right Story, Wrong Story one is the follow-up. Definitely recommend both of those. And yeah, it's just made a switch in me, and I really wanted to let him know how much I loved it, and also ask him if he wanted to be involved. And he gave us this great poem, which was so perfect for the record. And that's the bastard poem that nobody wanted. And it was originally called Arc. And I said, do you want that to be the title of it? And he's like, oh, I don't really know. It's kind of just a bastard poem that nobody wanted. So I thought, okay, how about we call it that? Because that's exactly what it is. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. The other couple of books that I read recently that did similar things to my mind was that Kimera. I can't think, Wall Kimera is her last two names, so I can't think of the first name. She wrote Braiding Sweetgrass.
Okay.
I don't know if you've read that, but that's really amazing from an American Indigenous perspective. So Native American.
Yeah, beautiful.
Indigenous. And also, just to take it away from the anthropologically centered life that we live, the other book was Merlin Sheldrake's book about fungus or fungi.
Okay.
Called Entangled Life as well.
Yeah, cool.
And it made me think about network thinking, and mycelium is really the base. Like it's kind of very, very similar to that method of thinking and intelligence, that network thinking where the intelligence and the knowledge is kept within the network structures, and each node understands because they're connected and it's shared knowledge, and it's way harder to destroy as a result, and actually a far more efficient way of being and using knowledge and protecting knowledge. Yeah. And obviously that's being decimated by colonialism throughout the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely, in so many ways. I'd love to talk a bit about the sound of this upcoming album, because you guys are notorious for playing around with new tech. Has there been anything that's really inspired you lately in terms of newer technology or things that you've taken into the studio that are a bit different?
Over COVID, I actually let go of a program that I used for 20 years, Pro Tools.
Yeah.
It was starting to become a monster, and I really hated using it.
Yeah.
The updates were just terrible, and I don't like using it. I don't actually use it anymore. So I taught myself how to use Studio One, which is just it's another DAW, but it felt like it had a nice balance between audio and MIDI for me, like MIDI control stuff. And so I taught myself how to use that and really learned how to mix a lot more over that period. So mixing this whole record pretty much by ourselves was, I don't know, perhaps a stupid idea, but it's something that I felt like I could take on. And I really got involved in it and really felt like my skills actually progressed quite a bit. And the sound of it's not too bad. Like, I don't know if it's world class, but it's certainly, I felt good about the result.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with that. Other technologies, I mean, this mucked around with this drum machine It's like a new drum machine from Teenage Engineering.
Yeah,
It's
awesome.
super simple. Ben and I are constantly on this quest to find like a drum machine that we can understand and use because they're all so complicated. So I've gone through so many of them.
Yeah.
And invariably they last about 6 months in my studio and then just ditch them. But that's a really fun one. So the Teenage Engineering guys are really amazing. I don't have a lot of gear anymore. Like I keep it fairly simple and it's mostly computer based. So
Yeah, okay.
apart from that, I don't really know. Sorry. I don't really know about the technology that really affected the sound or anything like that. I think we just wanted to do as varied a record as we always do.
Yeah.
And focus on the songs.
Yeah, beautiful. And how are you feeling about heading back out on tour?
I felt like I needed to work out a little bit more because we've been playing we played a couple of massive festivals recently.
Yes.
Golden Plains was amazing. But yeah, I just felt like on stage I was starting to really feel it. And you get to our age and you're like, okay. Ben's been really good lately. He's stopped drinking and he's working out pretty much every day. So I had to sort of step it up a little bit. I have to do some like singing technique lessons and warm-up exercises just to be able to survive because I think there's 30 shows in 2 months or something.
Yeah.
So it's a little
Huge.
terrifying.
Yeah, it should be fun though. It'll be great to see you in person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to it. Whereabouts are you? But you're based in Newcastle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Newcastle.
I really enjoyed the last couple of shows we played in Newcastle, actually.
Yeah.
A couple of different venues we hadn't played before. It was a really good vibe. One of Ben's daughters lives in Newcastle and she comes along to the shows. But she says that the scene's definitely changed a lot there.
Yeah. Well, I think the scene in general across Australia right now is pretty scary. What are your thoughts, just in particular around like all of the news that's been coming out about the cancelled festivals and stuff like that? It seems like we're in quite a dire position at the moment.
It's interesting. It depends on the way you look at it. I mean, I feel like there are definitely there's strong festivals like Meredith and Golden Plains that have good grassroots and do it for the right reasons. They have the right story behind them. And some of these bigger festivals probably need to look at the structure and go, well, if this stuff is not sustainable, how can we make a more sustainable model that works? And it seems to me like it needs to go smaller and it needs to be capped and people need to stop going for the money and just focus on supporting the art and doing it from a smaller level and a more manageable level and a more community-based approach is necessary. As far as the venues that have closed, I've noticed that a lot of these mid-sized venues are really getting hit by insurance hikes, and I mean that's tied to climate change, and we're all responsible for this. So it's not just the politics or it is politics obviously because that's what controls us all in the society, but it's about rethinking the way that we approach things and do things to really make a systemic difference and a change. And we're adaptable. That's what we do. We adapt. It's not the end of the world. We just have to adapt. And it's great when you reach these crises because crises is what it takes to be the catalyst for change. And we're at that point now, so we have to kind of rethink things. That's all.
Absolutely. All right. Well, look, it's been absolutely fantastic to talk to you. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today, and I can't wait to see you in Newey next month.
Thanks, Bonnie. It's been really lovely.